My name is Mike. I'm born and raised in Brooklyn, New York. I spent a few summers tour guiding on the double-decker buses that drive through Manhattan. And after one of the summers, just a few years after 9/11, I was dumbstruck how the tourists would ask me about the attacks as if it was a tourist attraction. They would ask me if I knew anyone who died in the same sentence that they would ask me the hours of MoMA. And it really highlighted for me this divide between the post-9/11 culture and what this meant to us on a personal level. And that was something that struck for me. So I wrote a monologue about a tour guide going through, and after that I started writing other monologues. The show's called the New York Monologues. It's a series of monologues from a swath of typical New Yorkers, put in ridiculous circumstances. They become frustrated and vent about post-9/11 culture, separate from how people reacted to the attacks themselves. I'm trying to dispel the myth, what it was like for people from New York going through those events. That's something that I don't really see covered in the mass media. I don't see it as a public discourse. The show was originally done out in Dublin in May. I was blown away by the talent and energy that the actors and my director, Jerry McElendon, put into the show. If you're not a New Yorker, it's hard to understand what those buildings meant. The Twin Towers were a symbol of what is best about New York. Strength, of how we can build tall things, which is kind of what New York is about. There's something safe about it, and it was a big part of who we were. It was a compass, you know? You'd know which way downtown was because you could see the buildings there. And they just got taken away. I think before that day, us as Americans didn't even realize what sort of enemies we had. You know, we had this like vague concept of the Russians, or fighting for oil in Iraq. And then suddenly on that day, you had all these different concepts in the same sentence that didn't seem to belong with each other, like airplanes and buildings and fanatical Muslims. It didn't make any sense. And you had people that didn't want money, that didn't want land, that didn't want our culture. They just want to take something from us. And they want to do it publicly. And that's what they did. They took something so personal away from New Yorkers. And after 9/11, you had a lot of things that were done to fulfill certain political agendas. You had a lot of money spent, you had a Department of Homeland Security created, you had wars. And after all this money, after color-coded security threats, after everything, 8.5 years after the attacks, there's still a hole in the ground. The buildings aren't there. I think if they built buildings, I may not have been provoked to write something like this. We performed 2 monologues at August Backyarts, and the reaction was strong. And that's part of the point of workshopping it at this stage, to see what New Yorkers think, to find out if I'm being true to them. I'd like to think it's not my story, that it's a city's story, because that's really what the show's about. The upcoming Backyard will feature the tour guide monologue because it's sort of the centerpiece of the whole show, and 5 monologues that have never been done in New York before.